Hey,
We're
we're
back.
back again. There's a song about that, you know?
I thought you'd say that.
Yeah. So, part 3, the
Yes.
final part
The final part
of your journey.
That's my warning.
About how we got to where we are now, and I suppose to the point of us coming together, but also there's some significant life changes that took place during that process. So, can you please share with us the next stage?
Yeah, so you could probably see from the previous two, part 1 and part 2 of my journey. Please watch them if you haven't watched them already, so it makes more sense. And to make it easier for yourself, subscribe to the channel so that you're not missing any gaps or anything
we're doing
that's
this
coming
whole
out.
subscribe thing.
Well, the thing is, if you don't, then you're going to miss the videos that come out.
What we're hoping is that people will be so engrossed they'll just have to press subscribe anyway.
Great.
Come on.
Great, I believe for that. Right, so we ended where I think you can see there's a pattern where I didn't commit to relationships. A lot of that was based on what I saw growing up, which I won't go into detail unless you guys want me to go into detail, but I won't go into detail on that. But I saw a lot of behaviours that caused me to mistrust men as a whole. Relationships, I didn't see positive examples of relationships. I think my own parents' relationship didn't work, and I saw, and my sister was kind of ahead of me, and I saw her getting her heart broken in relationships, but I also saw her in what I thought was a fantastic relationship, and I thought they were going to go all the way and build their lives together, and then it broke up, and I thought, well, what's the point of that then? Why would I even invest if this could be the end of a relationship? So I literally had no trust and no tolerance. I just didn't feel like I needed anybody. I didn't need to be in a relationship with anybody. So I had more times of singleness than I did of being in a relationship. And so, and I dated a few guys actually who wanted to date me, like I said with the example in part 2. And of course they wouldn't work because I didn't want to date them in any way. I was just kind of proving a point.
So then would you say that was relationships of convenience or loneliness, that you kind of thought, I might as well, nothing's really happening, so I might as well just engage in this relationship? Because I'm conscious that I think, especially when it comes to relationships, that sometimes if you're single, a summer romance or a summer holiday, because you can do things together, do social stuff. You had those kind of friends with benefits type thing where you can go to weddings and there's a film out, you don't want to go with the girls, you can go with the guys. Is that kind of stuff that you say on reflection now?
I think it was more, to be honest with you, I would sum it up as me just blowing in the wind.
Okay.
I didn't get to a point at that stage of my life where singleness bothered me so much that I would go into a relationship to be not single.
Okay, yeah.
But I also didn't seek relationships, but I was in environments where that would naturally happen. So either in the workplace or I'd go out to a party or a club and you dance with someone and you exchange a number or whatever. I was never into like one night stands and I never did that. But I never sort of met someone, slept with them straight away, or that wasn't me. But I would I guess I didn't struggle to meet people. So someone came along, we got talking, we'd start dating, And so it was, I just blew wherever there wasn't, I didn't have a set path on how I wanted it all to happen.
Or a model.
Okay, that's fair. And at that stage of my life, I wasn't thinking about the longevity of it.
Okay.
Of, settling down, getting married. Marriage for me, I remember sitting down with my friends one day, like you do in secondary or primary school. We all kind of sat on the floor in a circle. And someone, I can't remember which one of them said it, but they said, who do you think will be the first to get married out of all of us? Immediately, they all said Sonia, but she'll be the first to get divorced.
Okay.
That sat with me. That sat with me. And I didn't see it as offensive. I didn't see it as insulting, because that, around me, that's what happened.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, so that was my plan.
So then what changed? How you got, I think let's get to the point now where what significant life changes happened to you for you to be in the position you are in now?
What happened was my best friend at the time, who was a guy, we'd never dated. We met at a party, interestingly, and we danced, but we exchanged numbers, but we spoke throughout the following week. And then when we met again the following weekend, there was nothing there. There was no spark, no attraction that way. It was more brother-sister. Yeah. So we were friends for a long time, and we would be very open about the relationships and things that we were in. He became a Christian, and his lifestyle changed completely. Okay. And he began praying for me. And he used to talk to me. We didn't see each other so much because I began to avoid him because he kept talking to me about God and I didn't want to know. He kept sort of, asking me if he could pray for me or he'd, and I didn't recognize him.
Okay.
When I'd speak to him, I didn't recognize the person that he was. So I was pulling myself away from him. But he was praying for me. And I believe that brought a change within me. Okay. So then the next relationship that I was in, which was fairly long.
Wait, when you say fairly long?
Oh my gosh, I don't mark these things down, but I'd say
6 months?
roughly, probably months in, not years.
Okay.
Months in. But again, he was beginning to frustrate me. Like my tolerance was just, And we split up and then we got back together again. Big mistake because all the same issues are still there. Yeah. And so he, whilst I was in a relationship with that guy, that's when I began to feel almost like a presence. And I could only describe it at the time as my mum. Because she was the authority in my life. My dad was no longer in my life. And my mum was the one that had always brought us up to carry ourselves a certain way. Don't disrespect yourself. Don't let anybody see you doing this, that, the other, blah. You know my mum. Yeah. So her presence, she was the authority, like over and above the police and everything. She was the authority in my life, even when she wasn't there. So I remember being intimate with a guy, having sex with a guy, in my bedroom and literally I can still see it today, like my mum was sitting in the corner looking at me and just shaking her head slowly like she was so disappointed. And
saying what in patois?
Not saying anything.
Sundish accent.
Yeah, she's not saying Yeah, she wasn't saying anything, but she just that presence.
Okay, yeah.
Which I now know was God.
Okay.
But I didn't know God for myself then.
Right.
So I remember thinking, I shouldn't be doing this. There's more to life than this. There's more for me than this. This is nonsense. I don't even really want to be with this guy. And I'm allowing this guy to be in my temple. Yeah. Let's put it that way. Yeah. So that relationship ended. And then I went into a downward spiral.
Okay.
Of feeling like life was just on a repetitive cycle. I'd have money, I'd have no money, I'd be in a relationship, that would end, I would go to work, I didn't like it, and all that kind of thing. And then I began to feel loneliness. That's when I think my first stage of life where I felt loneliness. Okay. Because prior to that, I had people around me when I didn't want them around me. I prayed to be alone. Yeah. I'd shut myself in my bedroom when I was young and stuff like that. Now I lived alone and I began to feel that I wanted something more. At that stage, I was probably around 26, 27. Okay. And that's when it started to change. Okay. I think, yeah.
All right. So then can you summarize that process of that point of you feeling like you're spiraling and you don't know what was happening to the point where you became a Christian?
I don't want to disrespect or dishonor people who have lived or are encountering depression. But I think I probably touched on it there at that stage. Because I would come from work, I had to work because I had to keep the roof over my head. But I was so lost. I didn't see the point of anything. What was the point in going to work? What was the point in paying bills? What was the point in even eating food? What's the point? It all comes out again. What's the point? That was my kind of, I guess, phrase at the time was, what's the point? And one Friday evening, I came home from work and, hold on, I'm telling the story. All of it's in this book. No, it's not that book. It's that book. Wrong one. That book. It's all in here, but I'm going to summarize it. So yeah, I felt really, really low. I came home from work one Friday evening. I closed the door and I just leaned back on the door and slid to the floor, slid sideways and lay in a fetal position on the floor in my hallway and sobbed. Just sobbed and sobbed and sobbed. And if you had asked me at that point, if you'd walked into the house or called me and said, what's wrong? I couldn't even tell you. I couldn't describe it. I just felt so low that I couldn't pick myself up off the floor, which is, you know me. Yeah. It's not like me at all. To be like that, I tend to soldier and just, I've got to do something and just get active. I managed, after a while of being on the floor, I managed to drag myself into the bedroom and get onto the bed. And I sat on the bed, looked out the window at traffic going past. Yeah. Just carried on sobbing. Still coat on, shoes on, everything. Just sobbed and sobbed and sobbed uncontrollably. Didn't know why I was doing it. And then eventually at some point I must have fallen sideways onto the bed. And the next thing I knew, I was waking up. It was the following morning. I've still got my coat and shoes on. And I just start sobbing again. My eyes are swollen, puffy. I look a state. I don't want food. I don't want drink. I don't want anything. I just kept sobbing and sobbing and sobbing. Yeah. So obviously got to that point where I don't know what's going on with me now. And I feel like I'm out of control of my emotions and all of that. So I had this sense, this feeling now, I want to be in church. And I don't know where that came from.
Okay.
I grew up as a Catholic, and I stopped going to church when I was a teenager, when I persuaded my mum that if I could stay home, I'd cook Sunday dinner, and she allowed it, so that was fine. And so I hadn't really stepped foot, apart from weddings and christenings or whatever, I hadn't stepped foot in a church after that, just to go on my own to worship.
Yeah.
And so I felt like I wanted to be in a church. There happened to be a Catholic church across the road, slightly down the road, to where I lived at the time. So I went there, and I sat down, and I felt better, but something was still missing. And the main thing that affected me was seeing the large crucifix hanging from the ceiling above the altar with the statue of Jesus with the dripping bloods, you know, that you get in a lot of the churches. And I remember looking at that and shaking my head. Something's not right about that. I don't know why. I don't know why. But I did feel better, but still not quite right. And then I remembered a friend of mine, a dear friend of mine, who God used to bring me to him. He used to go to the church that we go to now, and he used to play the bass guitar. And we became friends. We met at a friend's party, spoke whole night, but that was it. Didn't date, nothing like that. But we just became friends, and I would sometimes go and watch a movie with him where we were literally friends. He'd come over and visit me, have a cup of tea, watch a documentary and leave. I wasn't used to that. You know, guys normally wanted something more, and they would, you know, over a period of time, work towards that. Yeah, you know, and eventually drop the bomb like, oh, actually, I like you. None of that with him. At that moment when I was in that church feeling like better, but something still missing, I remembered him. And he would come, as I said, to my house with his bass guitar after worship rehearsals. And I remember not being able to compute that, because in the churches I knew, there was the organ or maybe a keyboard, but, you know. So at that point I thought, oh, I'm going to go to his church. And I got on a bus and I went to his church. And this was Saturday afternoon, lunchtime maybe. But I couldn't get in. The doors were locked. And I was confused, because Catholic churches tend to be open all the time. You can go in, light a candle. And I couldn't get in. And so I'm still in a mess. I'm still sobbing. I don't want to be seen by anybody. I haven't eaten. I'm shaking. I'm just in a real mess. And I couldn't get in. But then as I was about to give up, I saw a notice telling me the times of the services, which were all on the Sunday. And so I left, went home, and just sobbed for the rest of the day, and stayed on my bed. And then, but I made a decision that tomorrow I'm going to go to that church. I just feel like I need to be in the presence of God, even though I didn't really know him. Yeah. And so the next day I went, and then as I approached the church, I saw that same friend standing in the back, like in the lobby area, talking to people, and I ran away. And I ran because in my mind, the way my mind operated at that time, I felt that he would feel that I was there coming to look for him, and that I wanted more from our friendship than there was. Plus I didn't want him to see me in the state that I was in as well. And what I really didn't want at that point was anyone asking me what was wrong, because words were just, I couldn't put two words together. I was in a mess. So I literally turned and ran. But I went back that night for the evening service, and I didn't see him, and I walked in, and that's where it all changed.
And at that point, would you say, just as we close, did you make a commitment that day?
You sound like a pastor there, just as we close.
See?
Yeah, go on. Would
so,
you say?
As we close, like that again, as we close?
As we close.
Okay.
Yeah.
Would you say that day you made a commitment that changed the direction of your life?
I did, because at the end of the service, when the pastor throughout the service, I felt as if, and I know many people have said this, I felt as if the pastor, who I'd never met before in my life, knew me and was talking about my life and was talking directly to me, despite the whole church being full of people. Like he was talking directly to me. And I remember thinking, how on earth does this man know my life? How does he know what I'm going through? And I don't know what the sermon was that day, but it just felt as if he was talking to me and about me. And so when he did the altar call at the end of the service, I didn't make a decision to put my hand up, my hand went up. I remember looking up at my hand up there thinking, what on earth? Because I had no desire to walk to the front of the church. And I was, you know what I'm like. I'm very, you know, it matters to me how I'm seen. I was a mess. My face was literally swollen from all the crying. And I didn't want to walk up to the front of a building where everybody was there. And I didn't know what was going to happen when it was the first time in the church, in a Pentecostal church, and the first time, experiencing an altar call. So I didn't know what was going to happen.
Okay.
But I went up, you know, when they said put your hand up and they said come to the front, my feet were taking me. I wasn't actually making a decision to go.
Yeah. Okay. And that was how long ago now?
That was 1999. February 1999, so 20 years ago this month. Yeah.
Ah, see, good timing.
Yeah.
Okay.
Anniversary.
See, yeah. Okay, wow. So you're up to date then with the point of Sonia making that change in her life.
Yeah.
Obviously.
The only bit we haven't put in is I made a decision when I started, when I came to Christ. I did not want to date. I'd done enough of that, and I knew what it looked like. I was curious as to how different dating was within the church.
Yeah.
I didn't know at all, no experience, but I made a decision and I prayed and I said to God, I do not want to date. I in the right time, I will meet the person that I'm going to spend the rest of my life with, and I will go down that road. But I don't want to date this for it to come to nothing, and date this person for it to come to. And that was the decision I made. Okay. And then 5 years on, I then say, God, you know, when I said I don't want to date, I didn't mean forever. That's when I began to get like, I kind of want this area of my life to move on now.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
And then what happened?
What happened was we were recording an album. I'm not a singer, disclaimer. But I'm not tone deaf either. So we went to record an album for the church. And in the studio, there was a big group of us, like the choir basically. And we were asked to just do some free worship.
Yeah.
We did that and the Spirit just came.
Yeah.
In that moment, the following day, a lady who was standing next to me at the time, she was an older lady, an auntie in the church. She came and she reminded me of the moment when we were doing free worship. And she said, the Lord told me, when I got home later that day, the Lord told me that I need to pray and fast with you regarding your helpmate.
That's me.
Hello. She said helpmate. We didn't know it was you, did we?
Yeah, but that was me in the end. I think that's a perfect time to pause of your journey to relationship until that point, which is this I suppose, a significant point in this chapter and how we got to where we are now.
Yeah.
Well, next up, or the next time we're in front of the camera, it will be me sharing snippets. Not so much detail.
No, hello.
Because my wife does the detail, I do just kind of the man version.
No,
so
detail.
I will give you the male
guys,
version.
do you want comments? Do you want detail?
Right,
let's find it. Do you want detail?
Snippets of my journey to where we are now, relationship wise, and hopefully it will be as interesting as it is ashamed
of your story.
No, I'm not ashamed of it, because
so why
glory to God. Snippets. You only need snippets, trust me. It's like an action movie.
We'll see.
Okay, all right.
We'll see.
Time's done. Hopefully we'll see you again soon. Bye.
Bye. Bye.